Oh my God. It says Hamilton, rap and singing musical, gets $30 million in federal aid with the potential for $50 million in federal aid. First off, the usual, guys. If you're driving or just listening, you don't need to see this article from the Daily Caller. It's probably preferable if you don't see the article and the images of Lin-Manuel Miranda running around on stage with this cast of clowns and buffoons from the Broadway musical Hamilton.
Not throwing away my shot. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry just like my country.
He's terrible. The show's terrible. We'll get to that later. We have the most successful Broadway is Hollywood too. It's on Disney Plus. Broadway play. They got hundreds of millions of dollars sitting around. They get up to $50 million of federal aid. First off, thanks to Kent for bringing this to my attention. I think I got angry at first. I'm getting over it. And if I can rip it and make fun of it successfully, I'm going to be very happy Kent brought this to my attention. But first, the article. Let's scroll down here, the Daily Caller. Hamilton received $30 million in federal aid, and another $20 million will be arriving in the future, according to the New York Times. Prior to the demic, Hamilton had 5 productions running in the United States, according to the New York Times. So this is the same way, Cirque du Soleil has like 50,000 productions all over the world. They set a tent up right down here in Oaks, on the other side of Norristown, off the worst highway in the world, 422. They put a tent up like, there's Cirque du Soleil there. I guess it's not special anymore when they're putting the tents on the side of 422 at Oaks. Hamilton isn't quite there yet. They probably want to model themselves off Circus of the Sun. But they only have 5 productions. See, it says here that each production is eligible for $10 million of federal aid per production lost, accounting from the Small Business Association's Shuttered Venue Operations Grant Program. How do I get funds from the Shuttered Venue Operations Grant Program? How did the guy down here that sells hardware, the mom and pop store, or the little business across the way here that sells breakfast with 4 tables, how do they get funds from the Shuttered Venue Operations Grant Program? And each of the productions is eligible for $10 million. So, Lynn, you're not managing the business correct, buddy. Just set up a Punch and Judy show out back. Get a guy to construct a cardboard Punch and Judy show, like the way the Van Trapp family put on their production with the goats and the Lady-O-Lady-O-Layos. If you set up a cardboard box, call it a production, and then send in your paperwork to get an extra $10 million of federal aid. Lin-Manuel Miranda, his Hamilton, tells the story through rapping of America's founding father and the first Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton. Guys, Hamilton, you've heard me talk about this before. Just cover it briefly. I'll cover it later. It stinks. It's designed to stink on purpose. It's a gigantic ruse and mockery of the American people where they put up a stinker like this, tell everybody how wonderful it is, convince everybody they have to like it. Even if they didn't like it, nobody's going to have the balls to return to the water cooler at work for those people that are allowed to go back to work and say they didn't like it. Nobody's going to be big enough, especially after you spent the $200 a ticket or whatever it was to get into Hamilton. They'll falsely convince you like it, even though it sucks. And ultimately what it is, it's an ode to themselves. It's a pat on the back to themselves in terms of celebrating Alexander Hamilton, the father of the first modern-day central bank, where people around the world somehow put up with these central banks, the ECB, Bank of London, Bank of Japan, the Fed. It's not just the Fed, in coordination, in cahoots under the same Whopper supercomputer with all the other central banks, printing tens of billions of dollars a day without any checks and balances whatsoever. And somehow they say to themselves in the back room where Jared's serving, we pulled the biggest ruse of all time off on the American people, where we private bankers can print up billions a day. And they're accepting of this system because we call it Federal Reserve. So let's just take the mockery to an all-time high and run this play called Hamilton all over the place that will suck and will convince everybody it's the greatest thing of all time. That is the level of ruse they can pull on the American people. Unbelievable. So, guys, scrolling down here, this is a guy named Jeffrey Seller, who's the show's lead producer, has a quote here. Lead producer, he's trying to defend why they were able to get the bailout monies. Jeffrey Seller. All right. Now, Jeffrey Seller, I'm going to read the quote, but it doesn't deserve me to use my own voice. Jeffrey Seller doesn't deserve that. So I'm going to insert a voice for Jeffrey Seller. You know, hopefully it's not like the witch's voice from Dune. But he says, Jeffrey Seller says to the New York Times, in defending why he got the bailout, he says, remember when Chrysler and GM were about to go bankrupt? Yeah. In the same way that the federal government came in to bail out the auto companies, it's doing the same thing for all the show business with this legislation. Duh. Jeffrey Seller. I'd like to do a podium debate against Jeffrey Seller, like a Billy Madison style for the company. Just do it! Oh my gosh, Jeffrey Seller. So here's this genius's logic, and people are shaking their head, or not shaking their head, sorry. They're nodding their head as they read the New York Times. This makes perfect sense. Remember when Chrysler and GM was about to go bankrupt? In the same way the federal government came in to bail out the auto companies, it's doing the same thing for the show business. And we're part of Broadway, so we deserve what we get. Okay. So just to point out, you've got hundreds of millions of dollars sitting around as the most successful Broadway play of all time. Maybe it didn't eclipse Phantom of the Opera, but that's because Phantom of the Opera ran for 30 additional years. Hundreds of millions sitting around. Shouldn't financial aid from the federal government, which in some way, most people believe it relates to tax dollars, but it's not. They don't need your tax dollars, but let's just say it does relate to tax dollars. Should tax dollars go to a production that has hundreds of millions of dollars sitting around? Jeffrey? Take your hand out of your pants, Jeffrey. And are you going to actually, in your defense, quote Chrysler and GM? Guys, I think it's a one world system. At some point, I can't do a sidebar every time saying everything's fake. In reviewing an article like this, I have to assume certain foundation level things are real. So let's just assume Chrysler and GM are independent auto companies that really did need a bailout in 2007 or whenever it was. He's trying to say his situation on Broadway is the same. They got an auto bailout, so we deserve it too. Oh, really? So you have what? Even with all 5 productions, you have what? 300 employees? Maybe? You include the guy that delivers the sandwiches, the guy that works up, that does the sandbags, like the guy that got killed in Phantom of the Opera, who says it must be a ghost or whatever. He was not at his post. You know, you got 300 employees. Chrysler and GM, if you include going down the line, all the part suppliers, all the people that work at Napa, all the people that deliver metal, there's hundreds of thousands of employees, okay? Hundreds of thousands of employees would be put in jeopardy, potentially 1 million people put in jeopardy. You see why they might need a bailout over your little stupid-ass productions, of which you employ probably 300 people? You're trying to equate that? Oh my gosh, if I could debate this guy at an Adam Sandler, Billy Madison podium. Just do it! Yelled at him a few times when he'd take too long to answer. Seller told the New York Times the money would not go to the show's producers and investors or fund artist royalties. He's going to do the right thing with the money. Instead, the money will reimburse the show for Demic-related expenses. Oh, I see. So you're going to use it for your expenses that you had to keep shelling out while the show sat idle. See, I don't know where you got your accounting degree, Mr. Sellers, but see, it's all kind of ends up in the same place. If you don't send it directly to Lin-Manuel Miranda or some of the show's producers and investors, and you use it to pay expenses, then at the end of the day, the show clears more money in terms of profitability, which ends up going to the show's producers, investors, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and yourself. You see how that works? Did you take your 7th grade balance sheet accounting class in high school? The credit, credit on one side, debit on the ledger, debit and credit on both sides. You'd have to balance at the bottom. Did you do that, Jeffrey? Genius here. We're in the midst of genius, folks. Jeffrey Sellers. We have one more quote, which I'm not going to do in my own voice. He doesn't deserve that. Hopefully it doesn't come across as the witch's voice from Dune. He says, Hamilton has spent many millions of dollars during a time in which it was earning no income, Sellers told the New York Times. Our goal is for Hamilton to be in the same financial position it was in when we suspended operations on March 12, 2020. What? What did he say? What did he just say? Try to pass off on us there? You've spent millions of dollars in a time in which it was earning no income. Well, yeah, Jeffrey, little news to you, Jeffrey. Everything was shut down for the most part for at least a period of time. We were all in the same boat if you were a small business owner, from a Broadway production to a mom and pop shop down the road here trying to sell eggs and bacon in the morning. So you want the taxpayer, assuming federal government bailouts come from taxpayers, it just comes from their printing press, which is a supercomputer, but that's neither here nor there. We don't have time to stray. You want the federal government, which most people believe comes from tax dollars, at least a percentage of it does, to put you back in the same financial position you were in, the same position before your operations was suspended. So you shouldn't take a hit at all. See, it is incredible. This is what, there are some people, most people reading this around the breakfast table, the regular normie, are too dumb to comprehend. At least the guy that gets pissed at this, the guy that gets upset, I don't like how he's feeding the system loose, but at least he's like, look at this, honey. These sons of bitches want to be put back in the same financial position, and they're going to be put back in the same financial position from before operations was suspended. Are we getting put back? Our mom and pop breakfast shop that serves bacon and eggs down the road here, we got 3 tables and a picnic table out back. Are we being put back in the same financial position? Where's our $1 million bailout? And then the people get upset. That's what this is designed to do. The Not Milk's a master at it, working through its Ministry of Information, which sends its bot-driven articles out throughout the internet all over the freaking place. So, oh my goodness. But you get the sense here that, see, Jeffrey, he probably is trying to justify why he's putting the $50 million in his pocket. But the Not Milk is loving the quote. These minions serve the Ministry of Information and the Not Milk, usually without being in on it. He's doing exactly what the Not Milk wants, putting quotes down that create and elicit tremendous anger in anybody, not in the truth community, but anybody that has a clue, saying, federal funds shouldn't be used for this, honey, I'm pissed, and just screaming out over the eggs and bacon, over the begs and aiken. Look, it's what it's designed to do. And then something will crawl out from under the Not Milk's screen and be very satisfied as it sucks the loosh of the anger and the negative frequency that this type of article produces in millions and millions of people. Millions of people will willingly, like a Romeo and Juliet and Leonardo DiCaprio version, hand the gun up to Tybalt and say, be satisfied, not Mercutio, that was his friend, be satisfied. Shoot me in the head. That most people are that. At least the guy at the breakfast table is getting pissed off and is not going so quietly into that good night as most of the normies and the dummies down the cul-de-sac. But I guess this is the end of the article. Yeah. Oh gosh, that's Tom Brady. Oh, get him off. Is there a bigger creep anywhere in the world than Tom Brady? It says, what did it say? Tom Brady gets a Subway endorsement deal despite reportedly never stepping inside of one. That's another headline designed to anger. and again, something comes out of the belly of the Not Milk, like Quaid, not Quaid, it was Quado that emerged from the stomach of that guy that held the little creature in there. Something emerges from under the screen and sucks the loosh, the frequency, the negative emotion that's put out into the ether by real spirited and souled human beings. And guys, if I didn't describe it properly in the past, and I didn't do a good job here, just one more time about what Hamilton is or is not. This system that's been here, I think it's been here forever. That you can't point to any one time when they want you pointing at the JFK assassination, when Kevin Costner makes his big diatribe speech at the end of JFK, the Oliver Stone. On that day, there was a coup d'etat. I claim there was a coup d'etat against America itself. And where was Johnson when all of this was happening? Why did they send Donald Sutherland to Antarctica? People, they want you pointing back into a relative short period of time as to when things broke down, when America was lost. And this is, to me, when they do that, it tells me it's always been here. They've always been screwing us. But the ultimate screw job, or one of the ultimate screw jobs, came right after 1776, when their hero here, the hero of the Notnilk system, what this whole Hamilton is about, created the modern day, or the first version of the modern day central bank, of which different reiterations of it followed with Jekyll Island and all the rest. Okay, mostly it's always been mostly a story. So truthers can latch onto it in anger, and the guy down your cul-de-sac just doesn't give a shit. But it was Hamilton, okay? And they're just, whether it was really Hamilton or not, whether he's a cartoon character, it doesn't matter. The production and play of Hamilton is a mockery of how the American people put up with this system, of which billions and billions are produced a day from the ECB, Bank of Tokyo, Bank of Japan, or whatever, the Fed, Bank of London, the City of London, whatever it may be, all unaccountable, all on a computer, all bailing out their friends and their cronies. And the guy down the street that just has the 3 tables with the begs and the I did it again, the begs and the Aiken, did it again. The table out back, the picnic table, he gets nothing, or he gets a little bailout. He gets like $700 or something. And productions that have hundreds of millions sitting around that are ultimately originally just about mocking not just the American citizen or the American person, mocks the world. Per the central bank system. They laugh all the way to the bank, literally via this Hamilton, and at the same time, they pat themselves on the back. Again, if you see Hamilton, and I won't see it through, even though you can see it on cable now or pay to see it. I've seen enough clips when I covered it before on YouTube, a variety of different clips from all the different musicals they performed at the Tonys, where I'd say it sucks. It sucks. And even if you were really, now there's again some catchy tunes, so people get a little bit of catchy tune in their head and they walk away from spending their $200 a ticket, and they've convinced themselves it was good because there's some catchy tunes, because they're terrified to go back to work on Monday saying it sucked, which it does. If it really was trying, it would not put this little squat guy, this little Lin-Manuel Miranda out front to lead it, to be the leading man. He's not even capable of being a leading man in 8th grade production. He stinks. Can he dance? No. Can he sing? No. Can he rap? No. I just have to mock it, guys, for just 15 seconds. I don't want to sing, but
I'm not throwing away my shot. I'm not throwing away my shot. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, just like my country.
That's what it sounds like. If anything were real, and I have this in the If the World Were Real section of the book, then let's just say if any of this was real, and he really hit on something. Lin-Manuel, or this troupe of 10, 15 people, it started off Broadway, and people took to it because it was catchy, and assume all of that was real, and the theater started to fill up. Somebody would approach Lin-Manuel Miranda. This proves by itself, guys, it's not real. By itself. They would say, Lin, listen, sit down. You're on to something here, something potentially big. We want to take this to Broadway.
You do? You want to take my Hamilton to
Yeah, shut up, Lin. We want to take it to Broadway, and we have significant funders. We have the Vicomte Duchamp on one hand, and we have a Kennedy, and we have all these people. Bill Cosby wants to fund it. He just released. We have $50 million to take this thing big time, Lin, but you're not good enough. You've got to relinquish the role, Lin. You've got to step down. You can't be leading man anymore. We think this could be one of the biggest things in the world. You're not good enough, Lin. Now, what if that would they? He can't rap, he can't act, he can't sing, but they just have to stick with him because he's the founder. No, they would have replaced him with a real leading man. All right, if anything were real. Which it's not. It has to have a guy out front that stinks in every single way. It has to be riddled with controversy. If it comes out of the belly of the beast of the Notnilk, like this Hamilton play, where he, in first major interview after all the success at 60 Minutes, he says, "Is there going to be any issue with me showing this? Who knows what I can get away with? Let's just cut part of him off. I don't know. Who needs to see it anyway?" Where he says, whoever interviewed him. Are these guys still alive? Like Morley Safier, Ed Bradley, Harry Reasoner, are they still? I don't watch 60s. Is Leslie Stahl still there? Somebody propping her up? Somebody asked Lin-Manuel Miranda, what's with the cast? You got, what do you mean? You got black guys and Hispanics playing the founding fathers. You seem to be trying to pass off. I know it's a musical and rap, but you say you're sticking to the basic storyboard history outline. So what's with the black? Oh, I got a good answer for that. Lynn says, I designed Hamilton and the cast of Hamilton to reflect what America looks like today. See, that explains the black guys and the Hispanic guys. And see, Aaron Burr's a black guy. He wasn't no black guy back when he shot Alexander Hamilton, Aaron Burr. Thomas Jefferson is presented in Hamilton as a black guy. He wasn't no black guy. So wait a second. It has to reflect what America looks like today. If that was the case, let's pull the census out. Isn't America still 67 or 68% white or Caucasian or whatever, however the census does it? Is it at least 60-something percent? So 60-some percent of your cast and crew of clowns and characters should be white, right? What you said didn't make no sense, Lynn. And let's reverse it. Let's take this out to the press into 60 Minutes. Whoever's interviewing Lynn says, I'm going to start a play, The Life and Times of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I want that play to reflect, just like you said, Lynn, what America looks like today. So the guy playing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is a fat white guy. And since we're doing the Selma March, it's all in there. Jesse Jackson is played by a Chinese guy. How's that going to go over as we run that play? You want to talk about, can you say 2 words? Picket lines? But see, it's okay for him to do. Okay, you know where I'm going. The double standard and how they work through the woke agendas and all this stuff. It's the people that camp onto it. They're doing exactly what the Not Nilk wants, to create camps, to create divisiveness. And they all do it without being aware that they're directly serving it. It's some sort of a download mechanism, mechanisms and buttons and levers we don't understand. But guys, I mean, just imagine if a white guy started, put on The Life and Times of Dr. Martin Luther King, and he had, like, if not a fat old white guy, like an Al Bundy type to play Dr. Martin Luther King. Couldn't he just quote what Lynn said? It should reflect what America looks like today. You had a black Thomas Jefferson. That's of course that's outrage. That's blasphemy. You could never do it, man. Never do it. Never do it. And what more is there to say than this? Oh, I will say one thing. For Lin-Manuel here, I'm no aura reader, but I get he just doesn't. He doesn't carry that evil vibe. I've seen him in a few things. I've seen his interviews. I've seen him on the Golden Compass remake on HBO, which is like his Dark Materials. He just seems like, I think he's being used as a complete puppet of this system, of this Not Nilk system, to carry this whole Hamilton thing through. I don't even think he's aware of how, I could be wrong about this, of course, of how this is just a tribute to themselves or a pat on the back to the central bank system. He seems, in other words, here, I'm not describing this well. If Bill Gates, if you and I watched Bill Gates walk through a flower garden up here, Longwood Gardens, and all the flowers wilted as he walked by, step by step, we would say, yeah, that's what I expected. That's a dark ring wraith from Lord of the Rings. That's what we would expect from creatures like that. Just the flowers wilt. I don't get the same vibe with Lynn. I'm not going to say he's a good guy, try to, request an autograph from him or anything. I'm just saying he just seems like he's not carrying that evil aura. He's just a puppet being used, and they've made him very wealthy. They have convinced him through all the applause and accolades that his play is as good as it is. Nobody in that front row of the theater is not going to not get up and give him a standing ovation, because that's what culture and society has said happens when you go see Hamilton. You've been told going in it's the greatest thing of all time. nobody wants to be the outcast. I'd be thrilled to sit there. I'd boo it and I'd jeer it from the front row. But who has, how many people have the balls to do what you and I would do? So he believes in it. I bet he believes in it, believes in every bit of it. And if he were to come across this video, he would say, and the system used me as a tribute to itself for the central bank. He would probably have no clue. I really believe that, what I'm even talking about. I really believe that. And as more and more time goes by, these minions aren't aware. They're serving the system exactly as the system would want itself served without them understanding it in most cases. So he's not throwing away his shot. He's young, scrappy, and hungry, just like his country. Anyway, guys, if you've seen this play, Is It the Stinker? It's some cute little, guys, it's one thing to have some cute little catchy tunes. It's another thing to be the most successful Broadway production and play of all time with tickets. Wait till it goes back on sale. It'll be the same thing. Months and months waiting time. Come on. Is it in any way deserving of that? Of course not. I think it stinks. Thanks for listening.